The $20 bill hit the marble floor and rolled once before it stopped beside Naomi's mop bucket. She was still on her knees, wiping a smudge off the baseboard, when she heard him laugh, that loud, performative laugh he only used when other people were watching. "Maybe if you clean faster," Ethan said, loud enough for the entire lobby to hear. "One day they'll let you empty the executive offices." 3 men in tailored suits chuckled behind him. A security guard near the elevator bank glanced over, then quickly looked away, pretending to check his phone. Naomi didn't look up right away. She finished wiping the baseboard first. Then she reached down, picked up the bill, folded it in half, then in half again, and slid it into the front pocket of her navy cleaning smock. "Thank you," she said quietly. Ethan blinked, thrown for half a second by how calm she sounded. He recovered fast, turned back to his colleagues, and made a joke about needing to get to real meetings. And the group moved toward the elevators, their laughter trailing behind them like smoke. Naomi stood, straightened her back, and kept mopping. 3 months later, a man in a slightly too tight blazer walked into a gleaming glass tower on Bay Street, holding a resume in a folder that had started to bend at the corner from how many times he'd rehearsed pulling it out. The receptionist looked up, smiled, and said, "The owner will see you now." The elevator doors opened. A woman stepped out in a tailored white suit, a MacBook Pro tucked under one arm, a Cartier watch catching the light, a set of car keys with a Rolls-Royce fob in her hand. Ethan's mouth went dry. It was her. The same woman he had once thrown $20 at in a lobby full of people. And now she was the one deciding whether he was good enough to work for her. If you're just joining us, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're new here, hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming cinematic stories. Now let's go back to where it all began. 10 years earlier, nobody in Toronto's tech scene would have believed that Naomi Grant would ever be mocked for anything. She'd built her career from nothing. An immigrant from Lagos who'd landed in Canada with 2 suitcases and a scholarship, and clawed her way up through internships, certifications, and sleepless nights until she was leading product strategy for a multinational software company with offices in 4 countries. She managed teams across 3 time zones. She launched products that generated millions in recurring revenue. She spoke fluent Azure, fluent Salesforce, fluent Power BI, fluent boardroom politics. She met Ethan at a fundraising gala when she was 28. He was charming then, genuinely charming, not the performance he'd later perfect. He worked commercial real estate, climbing his own ladder at one of Canada's largest investment firms. They married 2 years later in a small ceremony overlooking Lake Ontario, and for a while they really did look like the couple everyone wanted to be. They bought a condo with floor-to-ceiling windows facing the water. They flew business class to Dubai for their 5th anniversary. They spent long weekends in Banff. Naomi always the one who booked everything because she was, as Ethan liked to say at dinner parties, terrifyingly organized. He said it like a compliment. It rarely felt like one, because underneath the charm, something in Ethan had always needed to be the biggest name in the room. When people complimented Naomi at work events, he had a way of stepping half an inch closer to the center of the conversation, redirecting with a joke about his own latest deal. When she got promoted to senior director, he took her out to celebrate, and spent most of dinner talking about a commercial tower his firm had just closed on. "A husband should always be the one earning more," he told her once, half joking, half not, after a few glasses of wine. "It's just biology." Naomi had laughed it off at the time. She told herself it was insecurity, not cruelty. She told herself a lot of things. Then came the email. It arrived on a Tuesday morning at 9:14 a.m. Naomi remembered the exact time because she'd been mid-sentence in a product roadmap meeting when her phone buzzed. Her company had just finalized a merger with a global competitor. Entire divisions were being restructured for efficiency. Hers was one of them. 10 minutes. That's how long the meeting with HR lasted. 10 minutes to end 10 years. She drove home in silence, gripping the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles ached. She kept waiting for the tears to come. They didn't. Instead, there was a strange, cold clarity, like the world had gone quiet around her. That evening, she told Ethan. He didn't hug her. He didn't ask if she was okay. He set down his fork, looked at her across their marble kitchen island, and asked the only question that seemed to matter to him. So who's paying the mortgage now? Naomi stared at him. Ethan, I just lost my job. I heard you. His voice was flat. I'm asking what the plan is. That night she lay awake beside him, staring at the ceiling, replaying the question over and over. Who's paying the mortgage now? Not are you all right? Not I'm here. Just a ledger, and she'd become a liability on it. Within weeks, the shift became impossible to ignore. At a real estate networking dinner, an old colleague of Ethan's asked warmly, "And this must be your wife, the brilliant one who runs product for..." "This is Naomi," Ethan cut in smoothly, already turning back to the conversation about interest rates. "This is Naomi. Not my brilliant wife. Not anything. Just a name dropped like a coat check ticket." Melissa Carter noticed everything. She always did. As Ethan's colleague in corporate finance. Sharp-tongued, expensively dressed, always positioned just close enough to be useful. She'd been watching Naomi's fall from executive to unemployed with something that looked almost like satisfaction. "You can't carry dead weight forever, Ethan," she told him one evening over drinks after a deal closing, her voice low, intimate. "A man like you needs a partner who elevates him, not one who drags behind." Ethan didn't defend Naomi. He just swirled the ice in his glass and said nothing, which Melissa understood perfectly as agreement. Naomi didn't know about the drinks. She didn't know about the late-night texts that had started appearing on Ethan's phone, always disappearing before she could see who they were from. What she did know was that the man she married had started coming home later, colder, and quicker to anger over things that used to not matter. A dish left in the sink, the volume of the television, the way she sighed when she thought he wasn't listening. She sent out resume after resume. Interview after interview came back the same way. "Overqualified, not the right fit, we've decided to move forward with another candidate." The tech hiring market had frozen overnight, and every door she knocked on stayed shut. 6 weeks into unemployment, their savings were bleeding out fast, mostly because Ethan refused to adjust their lifestyle by a single dollar. Naomi finally sat him down and told him she'd found a job, a night shift cleaning position at a new AI startup downtown, just to keep some income flowing while she kept searching for something in her field. Ethan's face went through several expressions before settling on disgust. "You're joking." "I'm not. Naomi, you have a master's degree. You ran product for a Fortune 500 company. You are not going to mop floors." "I'm going to pay my half of this mortgage," she said quietly. "Since apparently that's what matters." The words landed harder than she intended. Ethan's jaw tightened. "Fine," he said. "But you don't tell anyone. Not my colleagues, not my mother, not anyone. Are we clear?" Naomi looked at him for a long moment. Really looked, the way you look at someone when you're starting to see them for the first time. "I'm not ashamed of honest work, Ethan." "Well, I am," he snapped and walked out of the room. She took the job anyway. If this story is already making your chest tight, you know exactly what's coming. But trust us, you have no idea. Comment below and tell us. Have you ever been underestimated by someone who was supposed to love you? The building was one of the newest in the financial district, 31 floors of glass and steel, home to one of Canada's fastest-growing artificial intelligence companies. Naomi started her shift at 9 p.m., pushing a cart between rows of empty desks, lit only by the glow of monitors nobody had bothered to turn off. She wiped down conference tables still littered with abandoned coffee cups from strategy meetings she wasn't allowed to sit in. She vacuumed carpets under desks belonging to people who made more in a month than she now made in 3. It should have crushed her. Some nights it nearly did. But Naomi had spent a decade solving problems for a living, and it turned out that instinct didn't switch off just because her uniform had changed. As she cleaned, she noticed things. A dashboard left open on someone's monitor showing customer churn numbers that made her stomach drop. A whiteboard covered in a product roadmap with obvious bottlenecks scrawled in red marker and never resolved. Complaint tickets stacking up in a support queue nobody seemed to be triaging properly. She started carrying a small notebook in her cart, and after finishing her rounds each night, she'd sit in the break room for 20 minutes before catching her bus home, writing down what she saw. Not complaints. Solutions. onboarding flows that could be simplified, automation that could cut support costs by 60%, a retention strategy that would have taken her old team a full quarter to develop, sketched out in the margins of a spiral notebook at 2 a.m. It was the only part of her day that still felt like her. One night in early October, exhausted after a double shift, she left the notebook behind on a conference room table. She didn't notice until she was already on the bus home, and by then it was too late to go back. The next morning, Adrian Cole walked into that same conference room 40 minutes early for a leadership meeting. The way he always did, coffee in hand, wanting quiet time before the noise of the day started. He saw the notebook sitting there, ordinary and unremarkable, and almost ignored it. But something about the handwriting, urgent, precise, covering page after page, made him pick it up. He read for 11 minutes without moving. By the time his executives filed in for the 9 a.m. meeting, Adrian had one question, and it wasn't on the agenda. Who wrote this? Nobody knew. It took him 2 days and a conversation with building security to learn that the notebook had been left behind by a member of the overnight cleaning crew, a woman named Naomi Grant. He found her that night in the break room, exactly where she always sat. She startled when he walked in, the CEO in person at 11 p.m., in an empty office. "Is this yours?" Adrian asked, holding up the notebook. Naomi's stomach dropped. She thought she was about to be fired for using company premises for personal work, for taking up space that wasn't hers. "Yes, sir. I'm sorry, I should have." "Don't apologize," Adrian said, pulling out a chair across from her and sitting down like it was the most normal thing in the world. "Tell me about page 14, the customer onboarding redesign. Walk me through it." Naomi blinked. "You, read it." "I read all of it. Twice." He leaned forward. "Walk me through it." For the next hour, in a break room that smelled like burnt coffee, wearing a navy cleaning smock with her name badge still clipped to the pocket, Naomi Grant explained, in flawless, confident detail, exactly how she would fix a company she'd only ever seen after midnight. Adrian didn't say much. He just listened, the way people rarely listen to her anymore. At the end, he closed the notebook gently and slid it back across the table. "Come back tomorrow night," he said. "Same time. Wear whatever you want." Naomi kept cleaning during the day shift. She needed the income, and she wasn't ready to trust the stranger with her whole future just yet. But 3 nights a week, after her shift technically ended, she'd change out of her uniform in the staff bathroom and slip upstairs to the executive floor, where Adrian had quietly cleared a corner of the boardroom for the two of them. Nobody else knew. That was the arrangement. Adrian didn't want office politics or ego getting in the way of what he was watching unfold. A woman rebuilding a struggling company from the inside out, one whiteboard session at a time. Naomi redesigned the onboarding flow that had been bleeding new customers for 8 months. She restructured the support ticket system, cutting resolution time by more than half. She proposed an automation pipeline for enterprise sales that Adrian's own head of product had been too afraid to pitch to the board. Every idea worked. Every number moved in the right direction. 6 weeks in, Adrian offered her something no one had offered her in over a year. Not charity, not pity, not a favor. Equity. "You could take a salary," he told her, sliding a term sheet across the table. "But I'd rather you take a piece of what you're building. Because Naomi, you're not cleaning up my company. You're building a new one inside it." Naomi stared at the paper for a long time before she picked up the pen. While Naomi's world was quietly rebuilding itself floor by floor after midnight, Ethan's was collapsing in broad daylight. The commercial real estate market cracked hard that winter. Interest rate hikes gutted the valuations his firm had been leveraged against for years. 2 major projects his division had championed fell apart within the same month. Investors pulling out, financing collapsing, a tower in North York left half-built and covered in tarps like an open wound over the skyline. Ethan's boss called him into his office on a Thursday afternoon. There was no 10-minute HR meeting, no cushioned language. Just a folder slid across the desk and the words, "We have to let you go, Ethan. It's not personal. It's the market." Felt very personal. He called Melissa that night, expecting comfort, expecting the warmth she'd been offering him for months. Instead, her voice on the phone was suddenly distant, businesslike. "I heard about the layoffs," she said. "That's really unfortunate, Ethan. Is that all you have to say?" "What do you want me to say?" A pause. "Look, I have a dinner thing tonight. We'll talk soon. Okay?" They did not talk soon. Within 2 weeks, Ethan learned through a mutual colleague that Melissa had started seeing another executive, one still very much employed, with a much larger office and a much larger bank account. She unfollowed Ethan on every platform without a word of explanation. She simply vanished from his life the way people only vanish when you were never actually the point. The losses came fast after that. The BMW X7 went back to the dealership. The company shares, once worth a small fortune on paper, evaporated along with his job. The condo, the one with floor-to-ceiling windows over Lake Ontario, the one he and Naomi had built a life inside, went up for sale to cover the mortgage payments neither of them could make alone anymore. His investment portfolio, over-leveraged the way his whole life had been over-leveraged, shrank to almost nothing within a season. For the first time in over a decade, Ethan Brooks was unemployed, unattached, and utterly, completely alone. He thought often, in those quiet weeks, about a $20 bill he'd once thrown on a marble floor. He tried not to, kept surfacing anyway. If you're still watching up to now, type "I'm still here" in the comments. Because what happens next is the part nobody sees coming. The announcement broke on a Monday morning, and by noon it was everywhere. A Canadian AI company, one that had been quietly struggling just a year earlier, had just closed the largest artificial intelligence investment deal in the country's history. Business magazines ran the headline within hours. Tech podcasts scrambled to book interviews. LinkedIn lit up with congratulations, shares, comment threads stretching into the hundreds. At the center of every article was a name that stopped Ethan cold when he finally saw it. 3 days later, scrolling through his phone in a coffee shop while waiting for a job interview that would also fall through. Naomi Grant, co-founder and chief operating officer. There was a photo. Naomi in a tailored blazer, standing beside Adrian Cole at a podium, the company logo glowing behind them on a massive screen. She looked nothing like the woman he remembered mopping a lobby floor. She looked like she had always belonged exactly where she was standing. Ethan read the article 3 times, his coffee going cold beside him, his own resume sitting untouched in his bag. He told himself it didn't matter. He told himself their marriage had ended months ago in every way that counted. Even though the paperwork hadn't been filed yet, they'd been living separately for weeks now. Naomi in a modest one-bedroom she'd rented near the startup, Ethan crashing in his brother's spare room, too proud to admit how far he'd fallen. Then, 2 weeks later, scrolling through job boards out of sheer desperation, he saw a listing that made his stomach drop. Senior Director, Strategic Partnerships. Excellent salary. Full equity package. Executive benefits. The company name at the top of the posting was the same one from the magazine article. He told himself it was a coincidence, that surely there was more than one open role, that surely he wouldn't be the one interviewing directly with her. He needed the money too badly to think it through any further than that. He applied that same night. The callback came faster than he expected. An interview, scheduled for the following week, with company leadership. The lobby felt strangely familiar the moment Ethan walked through the revolving doors. It took him a full 30 seconds to understand why. The marble floor beneath his shoes was the same marble floor he'd once stood on, laughing, while a woman knelt beside a mop bucket at his feet. His hands were sweating inside his blazer pockets. He wiped them on his slacks and approached the reception desk, resume folder slightly bent from nervous handling. "Ethan Brooks," he said. "I have at 10 o'clock. The receptionist smiled and typed something into her computer. "Of course, Mr. Brooks. Our owner is ready for you. If you'll head to the elevator, 31st floor. Our owner." The words hit him strangely, but he brushed the thought aside, told himself it was probably Adrian Cole, the billionaire founder everyone talked about. He stepped into the elevator, watched the numbers climb, felt his pulse climb with them. The doors opened onto a boardroom with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the entire financial district. A long glass table, 6 executives already seated, files open in front of them. And at the head of the table, in a tailored white suit, a MacBook Pro closed beside her. a Cartier watch catching the morning light. Naomi. Every executive in the room stood as she rose to greet him. Ethan's mouth went completely dry. For a moment, he genuinely couldn't speak. "Ethan," Naomi said, her voice calm, professional, giving nothing away. "Please have a seat." He sat. His hands, still slightly sweaty, gripped the edge of his resume folder like it was the only solid thing left in the room. "You," he started, then stopped himself. "I didn't know you were." "Co-founder," Naomi said simply. "And CEO. Shall we begin the interview?" She didn't gloat. She didn't smile with satisfaction. She simply opened a folder in front of her, his resume, and began asking questions, one after another, in the same measured voice she once used to explain onboarding funnels to Adrian Cole at 11 o'clock at night. "Tell me about a time you took accountability for a failed project." Ethan fumbled. He talked instead about a project that failed because of market conditions, because of bad timing, because of things that were never, in his telling, his fault. "Tell me how you've supported a colleague through a difficult personal circumstance." He couldn't answer that one at all. The silence stretched long enough that two of the executives exchanged a glance. "Tell me what you believe determines someone's professional value." Ethan opened his mouth and then closed it because he understood, with a sick lurch in his stomach, exactly what she was really asking him. He looked at her across the table. Really looked at her, the woman he'd once told to hide her job from his mother, the woman he'd measured entirely by a paycheck that no longer existed. "Title," he said quietly, because it was the only honest answer he had left. "I used to think it was title and income. And now?" Naomi asked. He didn't answer. He couldn't. The interview ended 12 minutes later. Naomi thanked him for his time, closed the folder, and told him the board would be in touch. Every executive in the room already knew what that meant. As the meeting broke and the others filed out, Ethan stayed seated, his resume folder still clutched in his lap, his composure finally cracking. "Naomi, wait." His voice came out smaller than he intended. "Please, I made a terrible mistake. I know that now. I lost everything. My job, Melissa, the condo, all of it. And I understand it's what I deserve. But I'm asking you. One more chance." Naomi stood by the window for a long moment, looking out over the city, before she turned back to him. She reached into her handbag and pulled out a small, folded square of paper. She unfolded it slowly on the glass table between them. A $20 bill, worn soft from months of careful folding and unfolding. "I've carried this every day since the night you threw it at my feet," she said. Ethan stared at it, then reached toward it instinctively. Naomi placed her hand flat over the bill before he could touch it. "I didn't keep it because I needed the money," she said quietly. "I kept it to remember the day someone I loved confused my job with my worth." The boardroom was silent except for the hum of the building around them. "You once believed a uniform determined a person's value," Naomi continued, sliding the bill gently beside his unopened offer folder. "Today, Ethan, it revealed your character. Not mine." She didn't raise her voice. She didn't cry. She simply stood, buttoned her blazer, and nodded once toward the door, where two security staff members had already appeared, quietly, professionally, the way things happened in buildings like this one. Ethan rose on unsteady legs. As he passed through the lobby on his way out, he walked past a row of overnight cleaning staff arriving for their shift, carts and mops in hand, name badges clipped to navy smocks identical to the one Naomi had once worn. Every one of them smiled politely at him as he passed. He had never once smiled back at any of them, in all the months he'd walked through lobbies like this one. He understood, in that moment, exactly what that had cost him. Months later, the same lobby looked different. A new plaque had gone up near the elevator bank. The Grant Foundation for Overlooked Talent, funding scholarships, leadership training, and career transition programs for immigrants, displaced professionals, and workers whose value the world had been too quick to dismiss. Every member of the overnight cleaning staff was now enrolled, free of charge, in coding and AI certification courses after their shifts ended, courtesy of the company itself. One evening, working late, Naomi noticed a new face pushing a cart through the lobby. A young woman, clearly nervous, glancing around like she expected to be told she didn't belong there. Naomi remembered that exact feeling. She didn't walk past. She stopped, crossed the lobby, and held out a company laptop. "What's your name?" "Amara," the young woman said, startled. "Amara," Naomi repeated, smiling. "Sometimes the door you're hired to clean is the very door you're meant to own. I'll see you at 7 tomorrow morning. Where whatever makes you feel like yourself." Amara stared at the laptop in her hands, then at the woman walking away in a tailored white suit, and for the first time in a long time, she let herself imagine a different ending to her own story. Never laugh at honest work. The hands that mop a floor today may sign your employment contract tomorrow. Pride builds walls. Humility builds futures. Thank you so much for staying with us until the very end of Naomi's story. A story about what happens when quiet dignity outlasts loud cruelty, when patience is mistaken for weakness right up until the moment it isn't, and when the people we overlook turn out to be the ones holding the future in their hands the whole time. If Naomi's journey moved you, tell us in the comments what part you enjoyed the most, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss the next story of betrayal, redemption, and unforgettable justice. We'll see you in the next one.